This is Russell Davis with The Art of Artists, getting inside the creative processes of great performers. I've never been fond of the word survivor, which is overused in the show business and applied to some people whose main achievement is just clinging on to some shreds of fame. But it's hard to avoid in the case of Anastacia Lynn Newkirk, if you're looking at the electoral roll, who has not just thrived in the music world, but beaten back at least 3 major assaults on her health, while continuing to look in the pink of condition. I'm looking forward to this because I know she has vivacity in buckets, and though her voice, I think at first, was hard for the industry to know what to do with, it has certainly triumphed now, on every continent. Here's where things started to roll. Well, there it is. I'm Out of Love, which is the very first track on the Ultimate Collection, the recent release by Anastacia, who is here with me, and welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
And it's great to see you on such good form. You look as if you're relishing the whole parade.
I am relishing all of it. It is so wonderful to be back at work, so wonderful to be healthy and really living the dream, shall we say. You know, the second act is so much more fun when you can do it.
Yeah, well, there have been several long, dark tunnels, and you've emerged from them all, and under your own steam. That's the important thing. Let's go back to the beginning, if we may, because you're born in Chicago, which has been through several remakes of itself musically. I mean, from jazz in the 20s and blues from the 40s onwards and so on. Where was it when you were coming up? Where was it at?
The most interesting part of I wish I did know, because I really didn't want to be a musician at that age. I wanted to be an archaeologist. So on the whole other side of that pendulum, there were no real beaches or places or quarries that I could find anything that was going to matter. So, it just wasn't happening. And then when I found out how very isolated being a archaeologist could be, I felt that might be too lonely for a soul like me. Mm-hmm. So I just squashed that idea, and then I had no real idea what I wanted to do for quite some time, just sort of living life, being happy, and dancing sort of sparked the singing thing in the early 20s, meaning my 20s, not the early 20s.
Right, yeah. Now, when you moved to New York, you went to the Professional Children's School in Manhattan, which is a hell of a thing. I looked up the people who've been there, and for one thing, it goes back 100 years, and it's everybody. It is. It includes Marvin Hamlish, Buddy Rich, Milton Berle, to go back a long way, Scarlett Johansson in the modern generation, dozens, probably hundreds more.
Laura Flynn Boyle, so many, all the Cosby kids were going when I was going. And what I will say is at that time, I think my mother knew that I had something, that I had this, whatever it is, this magic, this thing, this star quality. I was terrified of going in front of anyone and auditioning. Yeah. So that was probably the worst part about trying to make it in the biz, is I would tell her I would go to the audition, but I just wouldn't quite get through the door. And I'd be like, I guess they didn't call me back, Mom, and then, that was just sort of, and I would always be the only one in school. Everyone would be on correspondence. However, I'd be the one in school raising my hand, being like, I know the answer, I guess, because I'm the only one here.
Yeah. I think the fear with schools of that kind, I think, is that they'll turn out, bratty clones who will all go and play Annie, and they'll all sound the same. In other words, the individual artistry will somehow be suppressed in favor of a kind of meaningless professionalism. But to look at this list of alumni, it seems that doesn't happen.
Right. What they do with the artist is it's called correspondence, and you'll go and do your movie, but you are on the right curriculum and you are following school. So you're getting your smarts, but you are able to go. Yeah. And most of the kids that were going to that school were absolute professionals in their field. So that's why there are so many names that are so well known. And then there's my name that at the time was like, who? But of course, late bloomer that I am, I just happened later. And it's very fun to talk to some of my colleagues, and they're like, oh my God, were you Stacia? They called me Stacia. They didn't call me Anastacia. And it was just, I didn't even know you sang. And I'm like, I know. I was very shy.
Of course, here you set the picture of glowing health, but your troubles in that line began were starting then, weren't they? Because
Yes.
you had the pesky and more than pesky Crohn's disease.
Crohn's disease was quite
which
a
is
flare-up.
big-time digestive tract problem. I know a couple of people who have it now, and
Yeah.
it's a miserable business.
Well, we never get rid of Crohn's. We just sort of, it either keeps at bay or it taps at your shoulder quite often. And I do believe that it is the kind of disorder that if you do really mindfully keep yourself spiritually clean and try not to invite stress your way and try to talk through the things that could potentially bother you, don't hold it in, express it, have people to express it to. Crohn's can be a very livable disease.
But in spite of that, you emerged first as a dancer. Now, how did that come about? You were twisting yourself about, throwing yourself about.
And it's so funny because I actually, I wasn't a professional quote-unquote dancer. I was a white girl with rhythm. That's what they called me in New York. So let's just keep that.
Yeah.
That title is 100% like, what they used to call me.
Right. So dancing wasn't any sort of ambition. It was just something you happened to be good
Yeah,
at.
just rhythm. Yeah, I just had rhythm. And then the dancing turned into producers asking if I sang. And in my innocence, because my mother and my father were both really wonderful singers. My mother more in musical theater, but my father crooner, great crooner, like just melting your skin off type of singer, just an amazing singer. I just thought everybody knew how to sing. I thought it was a choice, idiot that I was. And I guess my answer was like, I guess I do. They wanted me to sing different things for different projects, and I would try to. And I did have a very distinct quality in my voice. Yet I tried to sound like the Celines and I tried to sound like the Janet Jacksons, but my twang always, it would be like, it would always come out and they'd be like, okay, don't do that twang thing. And I was like, I'm twanging. What is a twang? I don't know what a twang is.
Well, of course, the voice was noticed, being the voice that it is. But I've read that record company people called it uncategorizable.
Right.
Because you wouldn't know which section of the record store to put it in.
Exactly.
But I've never understood that that's a problem. Uncategorizable means unique to me, and that's what every singer wants to be.
Well, I think that's what every singer wants to be. However, for a record company to make a financial obligation to invest in you, what do they do? Do they start and say, we're going to make the new voices of the future and they're all going to sound like Anastacia? No, they're not. There's going to be one that sounds like Anastacia and a bunch of people are going to try to be sounding like her, but maybe we're not going to find like another Amy Winehouse or another. You just don't sometimes find those other voices. So I was very grateful that in general, they gave me the opportunity to be me, sing like I do, wear my kooky glasses, and be the sassy little girl that just needed to tell her stories the way she needed to tell them with attitude. And with that, I found myself. And with Sony's help of allowing me to embrace who I was, just like Cyndi Lauper, embracing the wild child that she was just fab, she was great.
We must hear some more music. And one aspect of your artistry that I'd like to talk about is the amount of material you use that you supply yourself. It's very rare for you. Well, before the album, what was it? It's a Man's World. It was rare because those were all men's songs.
Yes.
It's rare for you to reach back into the song archive and pull out a song kind of everybody knows. But there's one exception anyway. It's from 2002 when you were first a big name. And they asked a bunch of singers to contribute to an album that would reinterpret Disney songs. Disney Mania it was called. It's the first of those. And you chose Someday My Prince Will Come, which goes right back to Snow White in 1937, something like that. And there's a startling moment at the beginning of this. It's a kind of demo moment where it's just voice and piano and all innocence. And then your modernized version takes over. And they put it first on the album, and I'm really not surprised because it's a
I was
fascinating
very
thing.
grateful. Very grateful. Glenn Ballard actually produced that, and he was such a beautiful producer with my voice, just seemed to know exactly what to do, whether it was a complete rock song and doing, men's cover songs or doing my own songs, but covering a Disney song was one of those things that I go, can I do that? Can I destroy a Disney song like that? With my kooky voice, would the kids not get scared? You know, I just was so frightened to give them a different voice.
Well, if you're used to Someday My Prince Will Come in the old-fashioned way, get used to this instead. The Anastacia version of Someday My Prince Will Come. And after that, on that Disney song album, there wasn't a lot more to say. If you're going to recast an old song, do it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And you certainly did. It didn't matter what anybody else did. The original voice on the soundtrack, just in case you're a listener who's trying to remember the name, was Adriana Caselotti. Little piping thin voice, couldn't be more unlike.
More different.
No, but right for a cartoon animation. But back to this business of writing your own songs, which you do just about as much as classic singer-songwriters, like even Bob Dylan. When did it start? When did you first feel the need or the impulse to write a song?
The very first time I actually wrote a song, I think, was in 95. And it was One More Chance, and I think the next song I penned was probably Secrets. They weren't out. I didn't have a record deal, anything like that. It was just we finally had copywritten a song, and I was part of it. And then actually I think Not That Kind was also written at that moment as well. And I was shopping deals with those songs and mainly getting offers from people saying, well, when you have a hit song, come back because you sound interesting and you kind of have an interesting look. I don't know what kind of have an interesting look meant, but I think it just meant we need to get you with a stylist and a makeup artist is really what they meant. But I did that. And the one person I actually remember going to, and to this day we are friends, Randy Jackson from American Idol, I went into his office and played him Not That Kind and, you know, goes, hey, bro, dude, if you give, dude, it's not the best song, dude. And then I decided to call my first album Not That Kind because
it was the first one I heard about. And you sang it on an MTV talent show. Was it called The Cut?
The Cut, yes. Yeah. It sort of was like great payback to go, this is who I am. And if it's not what you want to hear, then please just let me know now because this is all I've got, you know?
Yeah. And David Foster was a judge on that.
He was a judge.
Useful guy to know.
Very useful guy to know, and especially when he liked you. You're just sort of like, what? You know, such a wonderful compliment.
The first album was a huge success all over the world, except in the US, where it was all delayed and
yes.
late. And what was going on there?
Well, do I know? No. It just never really got that opportunity to get on radio. We just sort of continued to keep it overseas, and I loved the ability of being able to come to all these different countries and learn the cultures, and it was just lovely, even though it felt like it wasn't real. Yeah. Because it wasn't happening in America. I was like, they're not really serious over here, are they?
You were still consolidating that first burst of success when the health thing struck again and breast cancer came along. And this is where you started becoming a public figure of a different kind, really, because you became a campaigner and a fundraiser, but also because you had to rebuild not just your career in general, but the physical qualities needed for the career, including your voice. I mean, all kinds of rebuilding was going on.
Yeah, it ended up being very difficult because it was such a huge part of my career, was so very, very big. At that very moment that cancer hit, I felt extremely responsible to get through cancer very fast. I felt responsible to the fans, to the record company. I felt guilt, all of these strange things that I knew that it wasn't my fault, but I could not help but feel all these feelings of, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get cancer. Okay, let me hurry up and go through this radiation and just a quick surgery, just have a little quick surgery. And I was such a people pleaser, too much so that I didn't give myself enough time to heal my own spirit. And bam, I put out another wonderful record and then a world tour that was not stopping. And I think that's a few years later is when I sort of was like, whoopsie.
And the sound that came out of that went by the name of Sprock.
Yeah.
And now clearly soul, pop and rock went into that word. But in terms of what happened in the studio, how was Sprock kind of constructed?
Sprock was constructed because I never really felt like I had a sound that they were able to classify into one word. And because I had a soulful voice and I did kind of contain the elements of pop. So I was pop in the Britney world and I was pop in the Christina world and the Pink world, but I did have that different soulful voice that was kind of like, what do we do with her? And then there's this really Tina Turner chick that was deep inside me that I had no real way of exploding her till Glenn Ballard was able to take a hold of me once again after doing Disney and the World Cup song as well. He did Boom. When they started to write with me, I wanted to make sure that the guitars were very prominent. And so the wording always stayed pretty much the same. The wording was very direct and the stories were very real, and it never stopped in my verbal to continue to be Anastacia, the one who needed to tell you a story. However, the music needed to have the strong guitars, and then my voice could soar over it, and it kind of give a little element of a sprocky, which I think is soul pop rock, the sprock energy that is missing in the airwaves when it comes to a woman's voice.
Yeah.
Men's voices can do that, but Stevie Nicks, she has a sprock voice, and there are so many of them, but they were almost ordained into the rock world because they didn't really have, if you were too pop, then they didn't even want to know you if you weren't rock enough,
Yeah.
And I think now with the fusion in music, it's okay to have pop along with your rock. You're not considered uncool.
No. Well, the resulting album was called Anastacia, and when an artist puts a name to something like that without further qualification, it looks and feels like a statement, this is me. But you weren't yet back to full strength, in yourself. So it was difficult work getting that together.
Yeah, it was. I think that I did know that I had found my complete sound, but I was also working on half a battery, within it, and just doing the best I could at trying to do what I could do. And it was doing very well. The people were loving it. I just probably could have used a year off. I think if I just had a moment to take a breath, I think things might have been a little different, but then you don't really learn things along the way.
Yeah. One or two tracks that became singles, their proceeds were donated to your own fund for breast cancer research. I think Heavy on My Heart was one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But not everybody in a state of recovery, as you were, would want to excavate themselves further in the cause of their work. Not everybody would find that therapeutic, but you must have done in some way.
When I found out I had breast cancer, I think the part that really surprised me and then also angered me was that I did not know you could get breast cancer and it not be in your family. I did not know you could get breast cancer and it not be in your gene. I was furious to know that women could get cancer like that. I was furious to know I did not know about that being a woman. And being the age I was, I wanted to scream it out to the hills. So that was just what I needed to do from my own spirit of wanting to help others that were going through the same exact situation, going, how did I get it? What did I do? What's wrong with me? And then you ask all these questions of going, feeling bad about yourself. Do not feel bad about yourself. This is just part of, what happens. But right now, all I need to do is make sure that I let women know early detection, go in there, check it out. Don't be scared of the doctors, because really, at the end of the day, the doctors will be your friends.
Now, on the way back, and I believe you'd already sold the best part of 20 million records by then, somebody had the idea of a greatest hits album, which I think you were a bit resistant to at first.
Very.
Yeah.
Yes. I was like, am I really going?
But Pieces of a Dream was its title, and the dream itself was pretty harrowing, wasn't it? It was a padded cell tie.
Yes, it's really what I felt like.
Yeah.
I did feel like this, this is so not cool. I can't believe that I'm working so hard and I really don't want this to be the end. I'm not ready for it to be the end. I think confusing my career after 5 years to have a greatest hits, I was like, this is not, I don't get it. Is that when it's supposed to happen? Like, maybe I don't know about this business enough. And
Well, one thing that was a real surprise to most of us, I think, was the duet with Eros Ramazzotti, which was included there.
Yes.
Interesting departure. I suppose inevitable given your long history of success in Europe, you know.
You never know what's going to happen when you actually get two artists together. But David Massey had thought of this idea and said, a wonderful man, Eros Ramazzotti. He doesn't speak much English, but I really think that your voices would be amazing together. And I said, okay. So I meet him, and he did this orchestra-ish sounding song, this very dramatic sounding, beautiful music with no words and no melody, just like as if it was just for an orchestra, and said, write the words. And I was like, oh, well, I've never done that before. I usually just sort of organically started at the same time, and like a little bit of a melody turns into mumble words, and then mumble words turning into kind of like words. And then you start to have this song that starts to build. I've never been given a bridge, a chorus, a verse that I have no idea what, but the song itself sounded so romantic. And it sounded so like I'd want someone to sing whatever these words will be eventually to me. And I just heard, I belong to you. I just heard the words that this song, you belong to this person.
Well, let's all hear it. It is another track from the Ultimate Collection, so let's hear it now. I Belong to You, or Il ritmo della passione. Anastacia and Eros Ramazzotti, I Belong to You, Ritmo della Passione. He has the reputation in Italy of being a very shy and evasive guy.
Right,
He had a difficult
yeah.
upbringing and all that kind of thing. But
Shy.
Yeah.
So not shy.
So not shy,
So
okay.
not shy. I had to tell him, if you touch my tushy one more time. I was like, I am going to be really happy.
Well,
no, I'm
that's
just
shy
kidding.
and shy, yeah. Do you get a kick out of collaborations in general? I mean,
I do. You know, I mean, if you're lucky enough to work with someone who just brings out a better you, then you're just gifted to become a newer artist that learned something different than, I mean, I got to work with Elton John, and I just felt, even though it wasn't a collaboration where we wrote a song together, just to work with the man, it was amazing, you know, at the very beginning of my career. Yet when I did do a collaboration where Pavarotti actually took one of my songs and turned a verse and choruses into Italian for his Pavarotti and Friends, what a joy to sing with someone who just is such a genius. And I have to admit, I did do the very question you should not ask, and I don't care. I asked it anyway. I was like, please tell me if I'm singing wrong. Like, I have no idea if I have technique or tech or what am I doing? Like, am I singing wrong? Am I going to still have a career? What's happening? What's going on? Am I do, re, mi, fa, and not? And he just said, the way you sing, how you sing is perfection. He said, very few words he said to me. It was more, the way you sing, you cannot do over and over again without make right. So he was giving me more advice of, if I was doing it wrong, I'd probably not be able to sing it over and over again. He goes, you sing over and over again, same. People cannot do. When they sing wrong, it goes, it breaks.
Yes.
He said, you have perfect, you open, you know, you don't sing from here, you sing from here. And he pointed to his belly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I do? Oh, God, thanks. You know, I'm like such a dork. But I mean, I'm glad that in a way he gave me that insight that he knew it.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Let's have another track. And since we're about to return to health matters, let's have one connected to those. And this is to change of pace because it's heavy on my heart.
All right. Try to fly away.
Anastacia and heavy on my heart, a song that was a fundraiser on its own, and a necessary one because the problem is tenacious, and it struck again in 2013, necessitating a double mastectomy, about which you have been more frank and descriptive than anyone I know, bar none.
I had a hard time not being able to, I didn't want to just say I had a mastectomy, because it's not what I had. I had to go deeper than that. The situation that I was put in front of me was different. And I think a lot of women have had that situation where what they're going through is not just a single or a double mastectomy. It actually is rebuilding everything and finding different parts of your body to put on different parts of your body. And, the whole malarkey of it is experience. And I felt it was important to let people understand why I was gone for the solid year I was.
Yes.
It was a very, very hard thing to recover from. I had to just relearn how to use a lot of my upper body.
Yeah. On the other hand, the second time round, the problem of producing, giving out again recurs, and the sign of your resurgence would always be an album. So there was going to be an album, but it came, I thought, very, very speedily. But I think most people expected a far longer delay before Resurrection came out, which is a translation of your name.
Yes. Actually, ironically, the thing that really got me was I was getting ready to tour It's a Man's World. And It's a Man's World was a real artist album. It wasn't necessarily the album that was going to be the top of the record charts. It was really an album for me to remind people about vocals and music and lyrics, because we've just, in music, sometimes forgotten what real music is. And the younger audience that I have, I wanted to kind of introduce them to these songs that I know as classic songs.
And liberate them from the category of male songs.
And also say, I'm a woman and I'm singing these same exact words, but I'm singing it from the woman's perspective. And I had to cancel that tour, sold out tour. And I was so riddled with guilt, the whole nine, once again, here it comes. But what just came huge was, this is very ironic. I am getting cancer 10 years to the month of the last cancer. My next album is going to be called Resurrection, because I feel like it's the second chapter of this cancer. Anastacia in Greek means resurrection. We have the title, I said to my manager, and he's like, whoa, it's a big title. Yes. And I was like, I know. I don't even know if I can write a song called Resurrection, but I definitely feel that this album is going to have a lot of just rebirth, and everything's going to be right. I'm getting rid of cancer the way I wanted to. I'm saying goodbye to it. So there's going to be a lot of feelings. I don't know what's going to happen, but resurrection is going to happen. And I don't know what that means. And what it meant was a wonderful, wonderful record was written. A wonderful tour became more and more and more dates. And it resurrected everything I would have wanted it to resurrect. And I feel...
Including Sprock.
I feel so very honored that such a big word coming from such a little lady, that I just honored that word and went with it, not knowing what it was going to do. But, if you really do live the honor of a word, and words are very powerful. Sometimes they just make little, fantasies come to reality.
It was recorded, I see, at London Police Station in Hollywood. I've long been interested in that name, but it's hard to find anything out about it, because all you get from the net is the addresses of all the London police stations. How important to you are your surroundings when you're recording? Because some artists need to be very particular about that.
That's so interesting. I said this to somebody the other day, and the first single off of the Ultimate Collections called Take This Chance.
Yes.
I wrote that in my hotel room on tour for Resurrection. And it was actually a day my mother and my brother were on tour with us in the bus, and everybody wanted to get their hair colored. they're all sitting in my living room with like foils on their head and everything. And my Skype call comes in to finish writing Take This Chance with Steve Diamond. So I pulled the doors closed, all my little pieces of paper from the side of the bed that I had jotted down ideas of, what I think brilliant lyrics, all these mastermind of metaphors of fabulousness, sprown all over the bed and trying to find it through pillows and sheets. Skype call over. I spread the doors open. I was like, all right, can I get my hair colored? So that is the kind of artist I am. I really don't have to have anything special other than if somebody's there, even on the other end of a Skype call, if they can be there with an instrument giving me tones and I can find a key for the best of my ability, my instrument I always travel with, it's my voice.
Yeah.
And also the words are in my head. So for me, as long as I can work with somebody who plays, we're in it to win it.
Since we're getting low on time, I think we should hear Stupid Little Things now. Partly because I have a fantasy that this is going to be... Some bright spark is going to cover this song as part of a Stupid medley. It'll be Stupid Cupid of Connie Francis, Something Stupid, the Sinatra song, and then Stupid Little Things to finish. Not easy to arrange as a seamless sequence.
I love that already.
But it's worth the effort.
Is somebody going to be you?
Well, I've thought about it, but that's a fantasy. Here it comes, Stupid Little Things. From Resurrection, and now from the Ultimate Collection as well, Anastasia's Stupid Little Things. So you don't write with an instrument to hand, somebody else has it.
Yes. Yes, somebody else has the instrument at hand, whether it's a keyboard or it's a guitar. Either one, I still can find my artistry off of. I don't usually find excitement from a beat. Like, that's not where I find my song from, how most people are. Just get a really amazing beat and this is going to be a great song. In the techno world and in the DJ world, that's really where I write songs old school. I write songs from melody and chords and stories, just, what's going on in your head.
Have you ever written a song that you perceived suddenly wasn't for you and then handed it on to somebody else? Does that ever happen?
No. I have to say, because when I do write songs, I write so little that they all go on the album and they all become B-sides. I have not a lot of repertoire that is unused, as opposed to a woman who I love, Dolly Parton, who has so many songs written and so many songs that have never been used, an amazing amount of musical history. But I only write the songs that make the world sing. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, you specialise in breakups. Anyone looking for a theme tune for a collapsed relationship?
Exactly. Just come here.
Yeah.
In fact, usually it's, you can always write it. If you've been through one collapsed relationship, I think you can write a million songs about that collapsed relationship.
Yeah.
It really does. You never forget that feeling. It's always great to do it in the moment because you're really quite... But I think I could write a good old breakup song, with my eyes closed these days.
Coming to last track time. In fact, it's here. And the one I've chosen is Paid My Dues, because you certainly have.
Good
choice. And you give yourself credit by name in this song, which is good. I mean, Anastasia's song. You've every right to look exhausted by life, but you don't. It's very heartening and inspiring.
It's just, I think that's what life is supposed to be. You have to live it and you have to make some mistakes along the way because you really got to learn and earn your respect on this earth.
Proves you're doing something if you make mistakes. Well, it's very heartening, as I say, and I've enjoyed it tremendously. Anastacia.
Me too, my love. Thank you
very
so much.
Thank you. Paid my dues. She has.
You can say what you want about me.